We have Yield, which is a competitive area control game that's coming from the same creators that brought you the game Hidden Leaders, which is definitely a solid game. But what really stood out to me with that campaign was the campaign itself and the way that the team managed it. I think they did a fantastic job. I think they did a really great job on the game itself, but then they made the campaign quite a lot of fun. And I was a really tiny channel back then, so small that a lot of publishers would normally just ignore me or not bother trying to work with me. But I specifically remember this team being awesome to work with, and it seems like they're doing everything they can to just be part of the community and just make the whole campaign and their games as fun as they possibly can. And this game does look like a ton of fun, and it does take place in the Hidden Leaders universe, but it is going to be a very different game, and I would love to see even more games come from this team because, like I said, I think they do everything right. But in this game, players are going to be playing as different houses with their own unique power as well as their own 6 unique action cards. What makes this game stand out from a lot of other area control games is that this one does a really solid job of incorporating bluffing, because the way that this game works is that each player is always going to be controlling 3 different armies out on the map. And at the start of the game, you'll have 12 strength that you can split between those armies any way that you see fit. This means that you could make all your armies equally strong, or you could make one of them really strong and the other 2 really weak. It's really up to you, and the way that you're going to be keeping track of this is on these 3 different dials that only you get to see until you enter battle. And you do have a couple options in battle, and it's only if you decide to fight that you actually have to show them the strength on that dial. But the main board's also going to be set up with a bunch of neutral fortresses, and each player is also going to have their own starting fortress, and you're going to be placing your 3 armies adjacent or on your starting fortress, distributing that strength however you see fit. And like I said, each player is going to have 6 different action cards, but you're also going to be drawing a few battle cards, and then you're going to be choosing 7 of those to keep at the start of the game. The game plays over 3 rounds, where at the start of each round, players are going to be choosing an action card to play face down in front of them. And then you're going to be taking turns either revealing and activating that card, which is going to allow you to do all sorts of different things like move, conquer a fortress at a location with one of your armies. And one thing to note about conquering a fortress is that anytime that a player does this, it's going to be increasing the amount of victory points that fortress is worth at the end of the game. But there is also an action on some of these cards that do allow you to upgrade a fortress that you do already have control of. There's also a card that allows you to attack adjacent opponent armies, giving you a +6 bonus in that engagement. And finally, there is an action card that allows you to duplicate any of your other action cards, but anytime you do this, you do have to lower the value of one of your controlled fortresses. And one thing to note about doing this is that if you ever lower a fortress down to 0, then it's completely destroyed and permanently removed from the game. But if it gets to your turn and you feel like the card you put face down in front of you isn't actually all that helpful, you can actually choose to just leave it face down and instead draw 5 battle cards. This phase repeats 3 more times, and then you're going to be moving into the following phase, which forces players to engage in battle with any opponent armies that they're currently adjacent to. For each of these battles, players can choose whether they want to fight or retreat. If you choose to fight, you're going to be revealing the strength of your army that is involved in that battle, and then players will be able to take turns playing any battle cards from their hand to add strength into that battle. All the battle cards do have an associated terrain type, and in order to play it, you have to be engaging in a battle on that specific terrain. As long as your strength is lower than your opponent's, it's going to be your turn to play strength cards until you can either meet or exceed their strength amount. And this is going to continue back and forth until a player yields by accepting their loss, and the losing team is going to be decreasing the amount of units in their army by the difference of the final strength. But anytime your opponent meets your strength amount and it comes back to you, you actually have another option, and that's to accept a draw. In this case, the battle just ends and no other state changes in the game. This continues until every adjacent army has resolved their battle, and then any remaining armies on neutral fortresses will just instantly take those. And then any player's destroyed armies are going to be returning to one of their controlled fortresses. But then also at the end of the round, a card is going to be drawn, which is going to increase the maximum amount of units that each player can have in their armies, allowing them to recruit more units in future rounds. The game continues like this over the 3 rounds, and then the player who has the most points from controlling the various fortresses is going to be the winner of the game. And if you want to check this one out, you can go ahead and find it in the description down below, and of course you can click that Notify Me button to get notified once it launches.